episode 65. So the Summer Olympics start this week, and I am very excited because this is absolutely the worst time of the year for sports. You've got baseball, summer league basketball, women's basketball, golf, and soccer. And maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but to me, they are all just such like slow-moving sports to watch sometimes. I really just can't get like wrapped up in them. For example, I was watching the Copa America final, and for 90 plus minutes, it's 0-0. And when you're watching this, it's hard not to think, wow, I just wasted an hour and a half. But anyways, I digress. Thankfully, the Olympics are here to kick things off again. They officially end on August 11th, and by then, college football will be just right around the corner. But I'm a fan of the Summer Olympics. You got the whole world involved, each of them kind of backing their country, rooting for them. You're rooting for people that you've never really even heard of in your life, and they've worked their entire lives for this one thing, so that's pretty cool. And it's really just the best of the best competing against each other. What's not to love, right? And to me, it all kind of starts with the opening ceremony. The opening ceremony sets the tone, I was looking into this year's, and apparently it'll be the first time where it won't be in a stadium setting, which is pretty cool. Athletes from each competing nation will be in boats going down the Seine River in a procession. So that'll be interesting to watch. I can't even imagine the pressure behind someone who's kind of like creative directing the Olympics opening ceremony, This year, that person is Thomas Joly. He's a French actor and artistic director who's enlisted the help of apparently over 3,000 artists in total for the opening and closing ceremonies. But where do you even start trying to grasp a concept for something like this? I don't know, where does that idea even start, It's the world's biggest event. It's in front of more than 100,000 people. There's expected to be over 1.5 billion people watching on TV, and the entire event is over 3 hours long. Plus, you're holding it outside on a river, which sounds like a complete just logistical nightmare. So, Thomas, I wish you luck, buddy, but I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're qualified to do this. In total, though, there will be 45 Olympic sports happening at the Paris Games, and some of these sports are very interesting. Of course, you got the classics that make it in there, and you ask yourself, how did these even come about in the Olympics, like table tennis or badminton, right? But one of the craziest sports that I saw listed on there was the modern pentathlon, which I've never heard of. So this event was first held in 1912, and it was inspired by the traditional pentathlon of the ancient Olympic Games, and it was designed to model skills needed for a soldier of that time. Over time, though, the rules for this modern pentathlon have changed. I guess that's why they call it modern now. But this year, we're looking at fencing, swimming, equestrian, and then the final event is something called the laser run, which alternates 4 legs of laser pistol shooting and running. And in 2028, it'll change again, where equestrian will be replaced with something called obstacle racing. But I thought this was very odd, though, right? This is a pretty unique group of events just tied into one, and it takes a very special person, I think, to compete in something like this. Handball is another super random sport. It's like a combination of soccer and basketball, but each team has 7 players, and your objective is to get this little handheld soccer ball into the opponent's goal, past the goalie. But you must dribble the ball within every 3 steps, and you cannot stand still with the ball for more than 3 seconds. There also is a little, it looks like a 3-point line, but it's not, around the goal, each goal. And you can't shoot the ball from within that line unless you're midair. So you can jump out of it, catch it or something, and then throw it. But also their hands have this really sticky resin on them, I guess, which allows them to handle the ball better. But yeah, very, very weird stuff. Some newer sports to the Olympics include surfing, skateboarding, sport climbing, and 3-on-3 basketball. Each of these debuted during the Tokyo Olympics, which was the last one. But the new sport debuting at this Olympic Games is breaking. No, not breakdancing. The sport is called breaking, and there will be a male group and a female group, and each group competes in solo battles, but athletes are judged based on their dance moves, which are improvised to the beat of the DJ's tracks. Now, after hearing about this new sport, one of my first thoughts was, these are just going to be the coldest fucking Olympic uniforms out there, right? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find them and see what they look like, but I remember in Tokyo, at least, the U.S. skateboarding team had some pretty great uniforms. So I'm sure those will also be some to look out for. You know whose country's opening ceremony uniform, though, is taking the internet by storm is Mongolia. Mongolia looks like they're going to just completely dominate and destroy every fucking country that comes in their path with these uniforms. If you haven't seen them yet, I highly suggest you pause this podcast for a second and look them up, because the energy these uniforms are bringing is next level. Whereas the U.S. Ralph Lauren blazers that they'll be wearing in the opening ceremony makes the U.S. look like a bunch of just preppy, privileged kids that just got back from the yacht club or something. It's just not a good look. One thing I'm specifically looking forward to this year, though, when it comes to Team USA, is men's basketball. This is a pretty insane team of just elite players, and if they can all mesh well together and get in sync, I think it'll just be like watching art, It's just going to be so smooth and like jazz and amazing. But with a major world event like this, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You got to face some criticism along the way if you're the country that's hosting it. And boy, is there a lot to discuss when it comes to the Paris Games. The first major issue, let's call it, though, is that the French government has vowed to make the 2024 Olympics, quote, the most responsible and sustainable games in history. Now, obviously, this is a great goal to have, right? But with it means you're going to have to make some pretty big sacrifices, and this mainly extends to the Olympic Village where the athletes stay. So first, we've got the rumored anti-sex beds, which also appeared in Tokyo. All of the furniture within the living quarters will be eco-friendly. Mattresses were made with materials from recycled fishing nets, and then stools and bed frames were constructed out of cardboard, which is pretty wild. But because they're twin beds and they can only hold limited weight because they're constructed from cardboard, many athletes have stated that the real reason that they've done this is so that they can't go on this rampant sexcapade for a few weeks. So they're pretty upset. Next, we have the AC issue. Organizers of the Paris Games have decided against installing air conditioning units in the Olympic Village in efforts to make the event more environmentally friendly. And man, countries are pissed. They're pitching all these studies to the Olympic Committee on the importance of a good night's sleep and recovery for athletes. And because of this, the United States and several other countries like Britain, Canada, Italy, and then Germany in there as well have stated they will be bringing their own AC units despite the organizers' wishes. Americans love their AC, man, though. What does Michael Scott say? He goes, I don't need fresh air because I have the freshest air around. AC. And then finally, we've got the River Seine contamination, which is pretty wild. Officials have stated that the outdoor swimming events will take place in the river. Now, historically, the river has been known to be extremely polluted, and because of this, the city has invested $1.5 billion into cleaning it up. But after recent testing, they are still finding very high levels of bacteria and E. coli, and apparently, Paris citizens are pissed because, one, of how much money they've spent on this river cleanup, but then two, the overall strain that the preparation for the games has put on the city, really. But in response to this news, France's president and then the mayor of Paris as well offered to swim in the river to prove that it was safe enough for athletes to use, and that date was set for June 23rd. And once that statement was released, Paris citizens started the River Seine poop protest. And this was a viral internet defecation demonstration that proposed for everyone to take a shit in the river at that exact same time on that day. Supposedly, the website even featured a calculator so that if you lived far from Paris but still had access to the river, it would then tell you when you needed to shit in the river in order for it to float down at the exact time and location of the protest, which is pretty cool. And after this started gaining some like actual traction, though, the president's proposed little dip in the river was delayed due to the elections, supposedly. And thus the protest to shit in the river also ended. But just this past week, the mayor jumped in and swam for a few laps, and she was like, everything's fine. She was like smiling from ear to ear. The president, however, did not partake. But this is a wild story, though, right? I mean, I guess they're testing the water weekly, and supposedly there's a backup plan in place if levels of bacteria rise again above a certain number. But yeah, who knows if people actually ended up shitting in the water on June 23rd. That is all that I have for this week, though. Go Team USA. There's actually a female swimmer who's from my hometown who will be participating, so that's pretty cool. Super random. I actually played volleyball with her brother, and this dude was just like a natural athlete, so I'm not surprised that his sister is an Olympian. I've never met her or anything, but yeah, this girl can swim, so that'll be exciting to watch. And if you're a donut fan, Krispy Kreme is rolling out some Paris-inspired donuts for the Olympic Games. So they've got the creme brulee donut, the double chocolate eclair donut, and then the raspberry vanilla cream donut. So if that isn't the greatest just American collab of all time, then I don't know what is. Athletes at just peak physical health and delicious, sweet-filled donuts. Anyways, thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.